I do also think that I'm getting a little hint of like wet straw. I know that sounds crazy.
Wait, what is that?
Like straw, like in a field.
Wet straw?
Dude, like wet.
Is that right next to the
grass clippings?
Is that right next to the honeysuckle? I think you still got some. You're still sniffing that sod from last weekend.
I get like
straw.
Yeah,
I've never. That's the first time I've heard you say straw.
I grew up with like a field in front of me where they used to bale the hay.
You're getting some earthy notes.
Yeah,
wet straw. That's a new one.
Like freshly cut straw. I know that sounds very pretentious, but like honestly,
you're in your bag. I like it. Yo. Welcome in to another episode of the show. I'm Ryan O'Leary.
And I'm Mike Zika.
And this is the Bourbon Playbook.
It's another podcast in the basement.
Happy weekend to you, Zika. Saturday afternoon edition of the pod. We said we would never be allowed to do it again, but here we are.
The wife let us get out of the house. We did it, man.
How we doing?
Doing all right, man. How goes the week?
It's been a stressful week. I've been a huge baby. Went to see the doctor for the first time in a while. Turned 40. Figured I should go to the doctor. Got blood work done in the whole nine. Got results back, and I've been I cannot believe my wife can even take me. Like I've just been ridiculous, and I'll get into that on the pour. But a pretty bottle this week. Basil Hayden, 10 years. This is actually a gift from Dr. Blue. Shout out to my wife's cousin, Lauren, for gifting us this bottle. Give us a teaser, Zika. What's going on with Basil Hayden 10? Why is this the feature this week? Yeah,
absolutely. So shout out Dr. Blue. Thank you. Appreciate you. Today we're shining the spotlight on Basil Hayden 10 year. So it's a bourbon that basically wears a suit to a tailgate. It's refined, but definitely not trying to overthrow the party. This Basil Hayden 10 bourbon comes straight out of Claremont, Kentucky, and it's Jim Beam's answer to a bourbon drinker who likes a little classy pour of oak.
Basil Hayden's a brand that I think everybody knows, and this is like a really fancy, cool-looking bottle. When I saw it on my kitchen table, I'm like, "Ooh, is this for me?" Thanks, Dr. Blue. But it was interesting to see the 80 proof on it.
Yeah, I mean, I think this one in general is a good entryway to bourbon in general, right? Basil Hayden, you'll see it on the shelf. They have a variety of flavors, and they're all like at that 80 proof. The fact that this is as well after being a 10-year, clearly it's diluted down with this WCW Nitro championship belt wrapped around it, gives it a kind of an interesting look, right? But again, this is something that if you're just getting into bourbon, Basil Hayden's a great one to kind of take that stepping stone and just really trying to understand what bourbon's all about.
Yeah. So you're saying every Basil Hayden's 80 proof?
Yes.
Interesting.
I believe almost every one of them.
Oh, cool. Well, I'm excited to get into that, but let's pour it out, man. What you got?
So this week, pouring it out to a little bit of a family edition, right? So had the folks in town this past weekend, straight out of Wisconsin. As I mentioned, I'm a cheesehead a couple times in the pod, so they brought their work gloves and their shovels. We had a lot of yard work to do, so it was fun just catching up with the family in general. But we tackled a lot of yard projects. We had to give
You guys were resodding the lawn, and
yes.
That sod is like a year old.
2 years. All right.
Okay, 2 years.
So catch me a little break.
All right.
Don't throw the shade yet.
Sorry, I'm already throwing it. Go on.
So hear me out. This is why. So wintertime comes, right? I got 2 pups, and when I take them out back, I usually shovel a little path for them and have a little patch that they can go out and do their business. And what I didn't realize is how in the spring and summertime, this area would become this acidic patch, right? Where
yellow grass.
It's yellow. I've done everything. I've used a rake to try and fluff it up a little bit, dig it up.
You've talked about your fluffing in the past, yeah.
Exactly, right? So it's kind of ridiculous, but yeah, I would say like a 12 by 12 patch, we had to literally rip up the sod and then resod it all in one shot. So not that much fun.
No, that's work, man.
It's not as fun as edging your driveway. Please trust me.
Yeah, seriously. That's a project.
It is, man.
Looking better though. Could you finally go out on your balcony and be like, okay, now I'm not as pissed off looking out.
Man.
I don't need brown juice as much now after looking out the window.
It gives me a little sense of security, I will admit, but for the most part, it was, it was a tough project to tackle. I had the family in town. It went much quicker. But the real highlight, honestly, for me was at the end of the night, long day, yard work. My old man sits down. I'm grilling out my infamous wings that I got from the Bud Man, the recipe.
Yes.
It was a great night. And RZ, my dad, the legend, he looks at me after dinner and he goes, all right, Big M, I've listened to the podcast a few times. Teach me how to drink this whiskey stuff. And I'm like, I honestly, my eyes lit up without like any hesitation. And I was like, all right, I abandoned the card game, everything that we had on the table that we were gonna do for the night. And I was like, this is a teaching moment. I got to break out a little history and see where it goes from there. So it was an absolute awesome time. And for me, I immediately go down to the Bourbon Cave, right? And I come up with just like arms full of all these, you know how it goes. You've been there.
Absolutely.
And so here's the lineup. All right. So I started them off. And I know my dad's kind of palate for the most part. Again, my dad, to give you a background, he's very much like a BV guy, Captain Morgan, mixed spice rum kind of guy. For him, I know that he likes kind of that sweeter, almost oaky vanilla, but also he has a sweet tooth. Sorry, Pops, I got to call you out. He loves drinking UV red and like Diet 7-Up. Like that's his second go-to.
Okay.
Which, man, the next day it'd be rough, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, he muscles through it. So the lineup that we started off nice and smooth. We eased into it with WSR, so Weller Special Reserve, 90 proof. And again, every one of these I diluted just a little bit, right? Because he's not a bourbon drinker. You know what I mean? He doesn't drink that much anymore.
So you're talking a couple drops of water?
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. So we broke out a little reserve to kind of ease into it. Smooth, sweet, nice, heavy wheated bourbon. And then I flipped it into the Eagle Rare. So I tried to go a little bit more depth and try to see if he could, identify any like cherry or like dark fruit notes. And then from there, I really took it up a notch and went to Weller 107. And then that's when he could start kind of being like, okay, yeah, those are, darker fruit flavors, fruit forward. Yeah, this is really good. And then I flipped it on him and went with a Penelope Rio just because.
Took out the big gun.
Yeah, I mean, it's super unique. And it's definitely a different flavor profile. And you better believe we were, eating crackers to cleanse the palate between these, right?
Of course. Got to give them the full experience.
Absolutely. And then we dove into finally Maker's Mark, BRT01, which is one of my favorite out of the wood finishing series. And that was kind of the grand finale. It's kind of that, wood-inspired fireworks show, right? So we're talking, a little bit more butterscotch, a little bit more oaky, very sweet forward. And that's something that he really liked. So I remember even at one point, my mom's sitting there, she's kind of falling asleep, but she's looked at me. She's like, let me try some of that. And my mom just doesn't drink, maybe like a glass of wine here and there, but that's not her thing. Right.
Here you go, Mom. This will help you go to sleep.
Exactly.
Could I trouble you for a glass of warm milk? It helps put me to sleep.
You could trouble me for a warm glass of shut the hell up. Now you will go to sleep, or I will put you to sleep. Check out the name tag. You're in my world now, Grandma.
You're going to get your 12 hours
Hop
tonight,
in the body
right?
bag, just like O'Leary does every week.
Exactly. So I gave her some Penelope Rio, and I put a little dash of water, and she loved it because she's, I'm Dutch. We come from a long lineage of, my grandpa being from Deutschland. And so she grew up eating those stroopwafels, which are very like cinnamon caramel forward, almost like a wafer. And so for her, it kind of brought back that similar memory of like as a child, right? Which is kind of cool. And that's where I was hoping it would play in. And I think I struck gold with it. And she actually drank a little bit, which was awesome.
Yeah, the Rio is fantastic. It's just such a different bourbon, especially if you're newer to it, first timer almost. That's kind of a spectacular one to try because it's just so unique, right? It's just not like your typical bourbon. So it's going to give her like a whole different vibe of what bourbon is, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And something very different, right? That she hasn't tried. So, I mean, in general, I don't even know if my mom's ever had bourbon. Maybe I gave her around the Christmas time, like a sample of Buffalo Trace, or I probably made her a cocktail.
Probably. Yeah.
But for her, it like hit. She's like, wow, this is fairly enjoyable. And again, I probably proofed it down realistically, like a 70 proof, right?
Yeah. Like this Basil Hayden 10.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. With a dash of water. Yeah, everything was fantastic. I even broke out a little bit of my Johnny Walker Blue, and I was like, all right, here's the difference between a Scotch and a whiskey. This is going to be very different, very peaty. You're going to get a lot of different tasting notes, but still a little bit of that sweetness on the back end. And my dad said it was, he enjoyed it. My mom hated it.
Yeah.
But again, I'm not a big Scotch guy, so it checks out, right? But then finally, I kind of look over at my mom, and after the third yawn, Liz kind of gives me the nod, and she's like, Mike, it's bedtime, and I'm like, I'm cleaning.
Let's go put Mama to bed.
Yeah. Let's help her up the stairs. All right. Get the walker. No body bags, thankfully, but
I'm surprised.
Yeah, I know. But again, they were all, outside of Weller 107, I guess BRT 01, they were all pretty low proof. So it was just a fun experience, with your old man. It doesn't get much better than that.
Yeah.
And, for me, it was just, cheers to family, flavor journeys, and generational wisdom, man.
I love it. All right. My pour this week, this one goes out to the liver. This one's going out to my liver, I guess. So this week I learned what bilirubin is. Have you ever heard of bilirubin?
It sounds like either a cocktail or a beer from Europe.
All right. Apparently bilirubin, it has something to do with your liver, and it can show up in your blood work. It has something to do with like, that yellow, how if you have like liver problems and your skin turns yellow, jaundice, that thing, bilirubin has something to do, and it's in that world. Okay.
Okay.
I've read too much about bilirubin lately. Okay. Because
can you give us the history? Do I need to break out my notebook and pencil?
Let me give you the history. So the quick history is I turned 40 and I have a 3.5-year-old, as you know. And I was like, shit, I should probably go to the doctor and get a physical and start doing this annually and, get some labs done and do the whole thing and make sure I'm healthy, right? 40 years old. So, just figured I'd have a routine physical, get the blood work, pee in a cup, and be done with it. And I do. I have like a pretty normal physical. All the fun stuff.
Turn your head and cough.
Yeah.
Did he break out the glove?
I mean, even the fun stuff's coming when I'm 45. Apparently.
Oh, okay.
That was one of my favorite things. I could almost kiss my new doctor when he said, "We don't need to check your prostate until 45." I was like, I could kiss you, doc.
Something to look forward to.
You're a good man. You don't need a colonoscopy either, Ryan, for a little while. I'm like, oh, that's excellent. What else? Tell me more.
Yeah.
Tell me more. But it wasn't all good news because I get my labs back, and I'll just share this story. I don't want to go into too much detail, gory details here, but I'll just share this for other men who might turn 40 who might be doing this same thing. I don't know if we're all great in our 20s and 30s about going to the doctor all the time, especially after college. I'm sure I'm not the only one. Zika, were you going to your general care physician anymore?
I don't even have one.
Yeah, exactly.
Sad.
Yeah, so I didn't either. So now I do, and I get my labs back, and two things came up. It was the bilirubin thing, which can signal liver problems. It can signal stress on the liver, I guess. And I was like, well, shit, like I'm doing this fucking whiskey podcast. Am I dying? Right? Am I going to die of liver disease? And then another thing was my cholesterol. You have multiple different kinds of cholesterol in your arteries, your blood, whatever. There's a good kind, there's a bad kind. My good kind was great. My bad kind was way too high. So I think I've found out after talking to my dad and my brother, a little bit of peace of mind. Even when it comes to the bilirubin, this seems genetics. It seems like that's a genetic thing, and it's gonna come out in the wash. That it's not anything crazy, but it's just everything's online now, right? So you go, you get your labs, and then you get your labs back within like 24 hours, and you can review them yourself without your doctor calling you yet, kind of deal. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So I'm looking at the levels and Googling. Okay, I'm high in this, so what does that mean? And I'm like, oh, I'm going to die of a stroke. Great. Oh, my liver's failing. My bilirubin's high, right? So you just freak out. And then you get the call from your doctor a couple days later. It's like, oh, your kidneys and your liver, no problem there, but we're going to check for this. And you know what I mean? It's just like,
you get 6 months to live kind of thing.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I'm doing the whole thing, man. This morning I had an ultrasound, like straight up like a pregnant woman.
With the gel and on your belly, and you're just kind of
it was quite the experience.
Tickles.
It was warm. It was nice. It was nice. It was a good experience, I guess. I don't know, man. I'm just like
pants up or down?
Turning 40, they were up.
Okay.
What kind of question is that?
I don't know where they do this at, man.
Get your head out of the gutter.
Get in the stirrups, buddy.
Oh my God. So I mean, ever since I turned 40, it's been a unique experience. Life has been unique so far. But I would just like, I'm pouring it out to my bilirubin levels. That's what this week's pour is all about. We're hoping that they come back in a normal range here, and there's nothing. This ultrasound of the liver, it was basically they were giving me an ultrasound of the liver to like make sure there's no issues there.
Yeah.
They don't think there is. It feels like it's a genetic thing, and it's just those levels can be high for a lot of different reasons, not just because your liver's failing. I haven't turned yellow last time I checked, so
you do have a little glow.
I have a little yellowish glow. So I don't think it's the brown juice that's killing me. I try to do that in moderation. I'm not a daily dram guy. You know that about me. I'm just pouring it out to anybody who might be in this stage where you're like, you feel like you're maybe on the back nine now. You're at that midlife. Are you having a midlife crisis? I don't know. Maybe you're kind of like me. You're waffling, trying to figure out if you're having a midlife crisis or not. Yeah, raise your hand. Maybe you're going to see a doctor. You get your labs. Hey, don't freak out. I think the key with labs is don't freak out about the first ones. You're going to get them again in 6 months, and now you have trends, and that's what doctors want to see. They want to see trends. The first one is a lot of precautionary bullshit, and I think that's what I'm going through, but in freaking out and going a little bit overboard over. So pour it out to that. Everything's going to be fine. Take a deep breath. Don't be afraid to sip on a little brown juice. Just maybe tone it down to a little 80 proof. Go easy on the liver. So Basil Hayden 10 comes at a perfect time. So
you know what you really need.
Cheers to the bilirubin.
You know what you really need?
What?
Liver pills, my friend.
I do. I might need to tap into your liver pills. Yeah.
And today's sponsor, liverpills.com.
Yes. Yeah. Honestly, I'm going to make you go get some labs so we can compare our bilirubin.
I should. Yeah. I honestly should.
Yeah.
I've thought about that.
Bilirubin's no joke, folks. So pour it out to bilirubin.
Cheers, bilirubin.
All right, Zika. So speaking of healthy livers, let's get into Basil Hayden 10, our bourbon of the week. What do you got?
Bourbon of the week. Enough with those sandwiches. Enough with the bilirubins. Let's dive into it. So this week, again, we're covering Basil Hayden 10-year bourbon. MSRP, we're looking at about $70 to $90 on the shelf. Proof point, 80. Location of the distillery, Claremont, Kentucky. Actually, the Jim Beam distillery lineage. So when it comes to the bourbon cred and awards, bragging rights, we're looking at a 2020 gold medal San Fran World Spirits Competition. 2021 top 10 bourbons for entertaining from the Whiskey Advocate. And then fun fact, this outscored several higher proof bourbons in a blind tasting for its balance and finish. With all that being said, Ryan.
Yes.
You ready for a little story time?
Always. Yeah, I want to hear about this Basil Hayden, this mysterious Basil Hayden 80 proof 10-year.
Yes.
How the fuck do you get a 10-year bourbon at 80 proof? Let's find out.
So let's rewind the clocks a little bit. Late 1700s, frontier Kentucky, dirt roads, musket smoke, and more corn than the Midwest State Fair. But amongst the settlers was a Catholic gentleman who wasn't there just to follow the tradition, but he was there to spice it up. So enter Meredith Basil Hayden Sr., a Catholic Maryland distiller who was an absolute mash bill rebel.
And this is a Mr. Meredith?
Mr. Meredith.
Okay.
So while most people were making kind of very heavy on the corn side type bourbon, because again, 1700s, leftover crop, that's naturally what they're going to do. Basil Sr. rolled into town with a total different idea with this high dose of rye. And people at first were like, what is this, right? Spoiler alert, it actually aged really well. So he was a part of the first wave of settlers into Kentucky post-Revolutionary War, where he brought this high rye mash bill with him from Maryland. So back in the 1700s, adding rye to bourbon mash was like borderline revolutionary, right? So it was this, bolder, drier, spicier, not for the faint of heart. And this is where Basil's whiskey really stood out, because it kind of divided opinions at the time, right? Of like this kind of new taste with bourbon versus just the classic wheat eater, corn heavy bourbon at the time. And it truly earned its place in kind of like the Kentucky folklore. So we'll fast forward to 1992. So Jim Beam was launching, which is now its famous small batch collection. So alongside, the big hitters like your Booker's, your Knob Creek, they wanted a bottle that was a little bit smoother, kind of more classier, and something that, not just the high level bourbon drinkers could enjoy, but also, individuals that are kind of just getting into the bourbon game. So they wanted to ultimately bring this recipe, knowing the backstory and the history of Basil Hayden's, and set it up for success with a suit and tie kind of vibe, right? This bourbon is actually still made at Beam's Claremont Distillery. Basil Hayden continues to embrace that high rye legacy. So it's a low proof, but they like to say it has kind of like a high elegance behind it. And where some people say it's entry level, like me, the 10-year release brings that serious oak to the party, and then also spices it up with influence that took place about 200 years ago.
I was gonna say, when you have a lower proof bourbon, but you can bring those elements of like oak and spice, that'll set you apart, right? It's like when we covered Traveler, right? Like that was the big knock we had on it, was like it just didn't finish with that spice. We kept calling it like a flat champagne or a cream soda or something. You know what I mean? We were just looking for that kick.
Yeah.
And we weren't quite getting it. So I'm interested to see if Basil Hayden achieve that. Obviously, this bourbon's been around for a while. So low proof with spice and some other elements going on too. That's a check mark, right? That's a feather in the cap.
Absolutely. So a little side nugget, the closest real-time connection, Meredith Basil Hayden Sr.'s grandson, Raymond B. Hayden, actually started a distillery in the 19th century called Old Grandad.
And you brought a bottle. Oh, this is $7.50?
Yeah.
It's kind of like a chode. Like it's just such like a short, fat, stubby bottle.
Chode is an interesting choice of words. But yes.
I've never seen a bottle like that, man. This is different. Old Grandad 114. That's cool.
It's pretty good juice for the price point.
Yeah.
So just to give you an overview here, it is still owned by Beam Suntory, which Suntory Holdings is actually in Japan. It's distilled by Jim Beam in Claremont, Kentucky. It was launched in 1992, is a high rye gentleman's pour. The vibe is definitely more of a lighter, low proof, high rye alternative to the other Beam products in their portfolio. And the flagship is that signature belt that I just mentioned that looks like a WCW Nitro championship belt that Brock Lesnar would wear. But it also kind of screams Kentucky Derby at the same time. So it's kind of fun. So they also expanded the lineup with a toasted 10-year dark rye and other experimental bottles as well. I saw, recently, I believe a couple years ago, they released one in a wine or port barrel finish, which I haven't tried. It's the purple label, but that looks actually fairly interesting to me. That especially if you're just getting into the bourbon game, it might be a direction you want to go for a finished bourbon. But with all that said, Ryan, the reviews are in.
Yes.
Is it
hype
or
hogwash? Here we
hyper
go.
hogwash?
Boom. Roasted.
All right, review number 1. Let me take this away, Zika. All right. Lil Ginger Yogi gives this a 5 out of 5 stars. Favorite top shelf pour. Top shelf pour? After 20 years of sampling bourbon, sipping and sharing some of the world's best, this remains my all-time favorite pour. Incredibly smooth with little to no bourbon burn. That is hype.
High praise.
We'll find out.
Review number 2, Whiskey Lover, 1976. 4 out of 5 stars. Titles it solid. Surprisingly oaky for an 80 proof. I get cinnamon, honey, an old leather chair vibe. Wish it had more heat.
Yeah, and I get that, right? And 80 proof, how much heat can it really pack? I'm interested to see that. But yeah, if it's like cinnamony, if that's the baking spice note you're getting, it gives it a little extra, right? It gives you that little extra spice kick that maybe the ethanol isn't giving you.
Yeah, and hey, listen,
lower proof.
If you're getting cinnamon, immediately my mind goes to like Old Forester kind of vibe.
I go Buffalo Trace.
Buffalo Trace cinnamon?
Like, yeah,
okay.
I get cinnamony notes on just like the regular Buffalo Trace, like straight bourbon whiskey.
Yeah, it could be that spice too.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, like listen, if you're looking for heat, turn on your fireplace, buddy. Basil Hayden's is not the pour that you're looking for.
Yeah.
Whiskey Lover 1976. Good luck.
Review number 3, glass half bourbon. 5 out of 5 stars. I like that's creative. Complexed and rich. Says the 10 years add complexity, but the proof keeps it locked in first gear. So I just feel like this one, it fits a certain bourbon drinker, right? It's not going to be your like intense, higher proof, diehard type like yourself, right? I don't think it's going to hit for you, but for people that are more on like, I don't want this bourbon to kill my liver, right? I don't want it to spike my bilirubin levels. Maybe it just might hit just right. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like this one is going to toe the line between like the super hardcore, higher proof bourbon snobbier guys like Michael Zika, or the more casual bourbon drinkers, where I think there's a lot of us out there like myself.
Yeah, I think this is a perfect rich and complex bourbon for bilirubin drinkers.
yeah.
Yeah.
This is a bilirubin pour. So I think this is a hyped up bourbon though, Zika, much to your chagrin over there, because it is only an 80 proof. So I know you're already crapping all over it. But 5 out of 5, 5 out of 5, 4 out of 5. That is 14 out of 15 stars on the reviews.
I don't know. There's a little bit of hype, man.
It's hyped up.
I give it a hype. But before we pop this sucker open, folks, again, place to check us out, tbplaybook.com. We got a lot of fun episode recaps, cocktail recipes, and enough to get you down a bourbon rabbit hole next time you dive in.
Yeah, we really appreciate you guys for checking that out. Again, tbplaybook.com. And again, subscribing, leave us that 5-star review, not just Basil Hayden. Come give the Bourbon Playbook a 5-star review as well. All that shit helps so much, and it's a great way to support us. So we appreciate you, and let's sip some brown juice, Zika.
Absolutely.
All right, Zika, let's do this on the nose, right? This is one with the 80 proof. It's kind of fun to drive your nose right in the Glencairn, right? And there's no recoil with this one.
Yeah, you can definitely drive that nose right down into the bottom of that Glencairn for sure.
I'm getting a lot of oak on the nose.
A lot of oak, maybe a little bit of cinnamon, a little spice for sure, rye heavy.
Maybe notes of vanilla there. There's some type of sweetness there, but I'm wondering if it's mostly just the oak I'm picking up.
For me, it's again where I get a lot of the sweet notes is when I pull my nose out of the Glencairn a little bit. Typically, I get those sweeter fruit forward stone fruits or dark cherries. I do get a little bit of cherry, maybe.
Yeah, there is a little bit of a yeah. You're right. When you rim it with the nose, you get
just the nose though.
Just the nose. There is a little bit of sweetness. You said cinnamon,
a little bit.
Getting oak. It's kind of fire on the nose, honestly.
Actually, yeah, I like it. It's especially for an 80 proof. Like how much can possibly show through on the nose, and it's different than a lot of the other bourbons because I don't think we've ever covered an 80 proof, have we?
No, this is the lowest proof.
Was Traveler's 90?
Yeah, Traveler was 90, and that was our lowest.
I do also think that I'm getting a little hint of like wet straw.
What the hell did you just say?
I know that sounds crazy.
Wait, what is that?
Like straw, like in a field.
Wet straw?
Dude, like wet.
Is that right next to the
grass clippings?
Is that right next to the honeysuckle? I think you still got some. You're still sniffing that sod from last weekend.
I get like
straw.
Yeah,
I've never. That's the first time I've heard you say straw.
I grew up with like a field in front of me where they used to bale the hay.
How about I just go eat some hay? I can make things out of clay and lay by the bay. I just may. What do you say?
So you're getting some earthy notes.
Yeah.
Wet straw. That's a new one.
Like freshly cut straw. I know that sounds very pretentious, but like, honestly,
you're in your bag. I like it.
As crazy as it sounds, it's like straw that's been cut, that's been like sitting out waiting for the farmer to bale it.
Okay. You're deep in your bag, so let's send this down the hatch and see what you get. See what you got cooking. You ready for the moment of truth?
Moment of truth, bro.
All right. I gotta tell you, man, it really has everything you're looking for except the finish. Really, it just doesn't have a long finish, but it's nice going down. That's probably the easiest Kentucky Chew we've had on the pod yet.
Yeah, it's definitely light, light, thin.
It's light on the eyes, though. I mean, you can see it. The color-wise, it's light, you know? I'm not surprised it's light going down.
The one thing I always have with spicier bourbons is they always linger on my tongue so long. Like Four Roses, for instance. If you get like a spicier bourbon like that, or even hotter, maybe it's the ethanol, I struggle with identifying the finish sometimes. If it's, like, I feel like this is almost like a mid-finish because the spice truly lingers on the back of my taste buds. I'm not a huge fan of the front of the tongue. I get like oak and then kind of spice. I'm not tasting a ton of honey or any of those fruit notes that I originally got.
Well, let me ask you this, because the palate, one of the first tasting notes on the palate is supposed to be caramel apple. And I know you're a huge apple guy. Like if you can get an apple taste in your bourbon, you're going to rant and rave about it. Are you catching any caramel apple?
I'm not. If anything, maybe it's almost like a tart apple, like a Granny Smith apple, if anything.
A sour apple.
Sour apple?
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit. And then it immediately gets, overrun by that spice, maybe a little vanilla, and then the spice just finishes the back of my palate.
Yeah, definitely catching a little vanilla, and that's on the tasting notes. Vanilla bean, light rye spice for sure. Caramel apple, not getting apple. The nose, just to read through the tasting notes for people that are following along. Toasted oak, tons of toasted oak. I'm not surprised that was the first one listed. That's the first thing I got. Dried cherries. I think when we pulled our nose out of the Glencairn a little bit, we caught some of those cherries. Cinnamon stick. I think you caught that, Zika. Good for you. Hint of pipe tobacco. No wet straw, but they did go with the tobacco. So
telling you, bro, if you grew up where I did, we drink different in Wisconsin. All right.
All right.
Why do you think it's so popular?
Because it's an easier bourbon to drink.
Yeah, it's just more drinkable.
Right.
And I think it scores some points in that regard. So, finish, Zika. Do you agree with this? Medium length, soft spice, dry oak, and a touch of pepper and mint. What do you think on the finish?
I think that's spot on. It's very muted. It's obviously diluted down, and for an 80 proof, 10-year, it's just okay for me. And so for the mash bill, we're looking at, again, a high rye mash bill, 63% corn, 27% rye, and 10% malted barley. And this is, again, another DNS, so we're not quite sure, but this is estimated.
So I'm not surprised, because 63% corn, that checks out to me. Not a ton of sweetness. I have to fight to find that vanilla, and I couldn't find the caramel personally.
Same, yeah. If it's something that you want, maybe an easy sipper, 10-year. We'll get into the E5 scale here. I don't want to tease it too much, but just an easy, drinkable, decent-looking bottle, cool-looking bottle, to be fair. For a 10-year, this might be something that you'd want to look at on your shelf, but this is one that, listen, if I had O'Leary over and he's like, hey, my liver can't take it, I might pour him out a 10-year here of Basil Hayden's.
This is bilirubin approved.
Yes.
So my doctor would approve this one for me.
It actually has the stamp. It says B with a big circle around it. That must be bilirubin approved here.
Shout out to Basil Hayden for going easy on the liver. It's a nice little sip.
Respect.
Self 5 for the big dog.
Where does Basil Hayden 10-year land on the Essential 5 scale? Real quick, those 5 are the Daily Dram, the Impress My Guests, the Budget Blend, the Saturday Night Sipper, and the Precious Pour, a.k.a. the Elite Pour.
Row the boat, sky you mop, and go Gophers.
PJ Fleck.
Our ode to PJ Fleck. Go Gophers. Daily Dram stuck out to me. That's one that's been stuck in my mind as we've gone through the process, Zika. Process of elimination, I think, Saturday Night Sipper, Precious Pour, this one's out for us based on our palates, right? We just like a little bit more kick.
I mean, contrary to what Little Ginger Yogi said for that top shelf pour.
Not a top shelf pour. It's a nice like smooth little dram though. Neat in a Glencairn daily dram. I guess that's where I'm going. Like I would eliminate Saturday Night Sipper. I would eliminate Precious Pour. Daily dram and budget blend are tough because remind me of the MSRP. You said 70 to 90.
Correct.
Okay, that's on the higher side for a daily dram. It's on the higher side for a budget blend as well. So I'm wondering if we're almost like cornered into impress my guests immediately. Let's talk through daily dram. All right, if you could afford to just buy boxes of Basil Hayden 10 and put it all over your shelf and sip on it daily, I think the profile. This is what you're looking for in a daily dram, right? It's very drinkable. You could drink it at any point of the day. It's not gonna like send you like crip walk into work or anything. You know what I'm saying? Like,
and it's easy on the liver.
It's easy on the liver. Good for your bilirubin levels. So if you are a whiskey lover and you want to have a daily dram, 1 glass of bourbon a day, Basil Hayden 10, I feel like if it wasn't for the price, would kind of be like right there in the sweet spot, right? But I wonder if the price knocks it out of that category for us.
So for me, yeah, absolutely. Like what you just said, I completely agree. I mean, I think it is smooth, but at the same time, you know, you have an 80 proof daily dram. Yep, get that. But the price point for sure, just it knocks it out of here. When I'm talking a daily dram around that $30 price range, that's perfect for me. Maybe 40, but this one at 70 to 90, no chance.
Yep. So that's knocking out daily dram and budget blend?
Correct.
Okay. So this is either an impress my guest or a bilirubin blunder.
If I could put a subtask under impress my guests with bilirubin blunder, that would be it. Unfortunately, that's not on the E5 scale, so I would throw this under impress my guests. The age statement alone, bottle's fairly cool.
It is a cool looking bottle.
The presentation's nice.
The belt,
right? Like it's cool. It would impress my guests, I think. But at the end of the day, you know, it's just not something that I could see in any other category other than where it's at right now, especially at an 80 proof and the price point.
Yeah. I feel like it's something that you could easily pour for it's a versatile bourbon in that you could pour it for any of your guests, right? You could pour it for mom and dad the other night and that would have been fine for them, I think, right? For your more seasoned bourbon drinkers, it could be one to kick you guys off. Could be a little appetizer right in the Glencairn, something to get the palate going, right? Before you get into your higher proofs and your real pours and
right.
Eat a couple crackers. So I think it's versatile in that one. I do feel like it fits in the impress my guests category. I wish I could argue for daily dram a little bit harder. It just didn't quite hit all those notes for me. I feel like if you put it on ice, it would lose everything almost. Right. And that price point makes it tough. $70 doesn't really fall. You're looking for something in that $35, $40. Maybe that's what was it? Old Grandpa. What was the other one?
Old Granddad.
Old Granddad. Maybe that's more of a daily dram. I don't know. I think that was a 114 though, right?
Correct.
So this is gonna be a quick E5 because I don't have much of an argument for you, Zika. I think it impressed my guests. It's versatile enough. The bottle's cool. It's a 10-year. There's some talking points there.
Final answer. Impress my guests.
Final answer, Zika. So as for the teaser for next week, we are planning to do some different things, right? We're going to try some different things. We're going to shake it up a little bit. We are heading to the Bourbon Trail. We're very excited about that. We're heading to Kentucky here in about a week or so. The calendars it's counting down, right? Counting down the days. We're gonna do a couple of like mini episodes, burners. They're not going to be our normal breakdown. It's not going to be your normal format. We're going to do some cool stuff. It's really just our way of getting some episodes in the bank quickly so we can go enjoy the Bourbon Trail without taking a week off, so to speak. Just to be fully transparent, we're going to do a series of mini episodes and then come back from the Bourbon Trail and maybe even come up with some more cool newish content. So I think for the next month or so on the podcast, it's gonna be a little bit of a different feel. Is that a good way to tease it for next week?
Absolutely. I mean, this is our first Bourbon Trail, right? So we're just going to kind of next episode walk through our game plan, kind of what to expect, what we've heard from some savants out there and then put our own little twist on it, kind of walk through our agenda. We actually got a really cool experience coming our way. So I'm excited to dive into that with the listeners here this next week and just kind of understand our process and what to expect moving forward.
Yeah, so we're going to preview the Bourbon Trail a little bit. It'll be a shorter episode. The next couple will be shorter. I think we have a blind tasting.
Yes.
Our first blind tasting on the pod that we're going to do here in a couple weeks, which will be fun. So get ready for a couple of quick hitters while we're out in the trail experiencing that. And we're going to try to come up with some cool ideas, cool content coming out of the Bourbon Trail because we're just going to have so much to talk about. So many stories, hopefully, to get into based on our observations and people we talk to and who we meet and what the experience of touring a bunch of fucking distilleries in a short amount of time, right? We're going to hit we're probably going to end up hitting close to 10 distilleries in a matter of a few days.
We had 3 the first day.
First day. We'll get into that a little bit more next week, but so basically, Zika, this is a bourbon you could pour when your in-laws visit and when you look like you got your life together, like you're out in the back laying the new sod. This would be a perfect bourbon for you.
Exactly. Smooth, polite, and aged just enough to command that respect from your old man, RZ. Unlike me on the back nine.
I haven't gone golfing with you yet, but I'm sure it's not pretty.
You're not missing much.
Yeah, no, that'd be good. You'd be a good guy to go with.
Lots of breakfast balls.
Yeah. Cheers, everyone. We'll catch you next week.
Cheers.